passe l'artiste. Super, encore un but sensationnel. That's a brilliant bit of follow-up play by Mahe. Oh my goodness me, what a shot.
Sagosen setter det hen! Han setter den! De i semifinale igjen!
Hello everyone and welcome to the Uninformed Handball Hour's official match predictor show. And if you've been following us on social media over the last couple of days, you'll know that we are terrible at this. But we're giving it another go, and we're bringing in some bigger experts this time, or some bigger names, if you could call them that. I mean, we had a plethora of brilliant guests in the opening pre-championship prediction show we did. We've got a couple of big ones today as well. We're going to introduce those shortly, but first, we'll introduce the three of us from the Uninformed Handball Hour podcast. I'm Chris O'Reilly, currently top of the three of us in the Predictor League. We've got Brian Campion, who missed the first few games in the Predictor League. Brian, how are you?
I'm good. I thought that wasn't going to come up in the conversation, but you brought it up straight away, Chris. Thanks very much.
I had to go straight in there. And, well, you've talked about it enough on the podcast over the last few days. And we've got the middleman, Alex Kulash, who did seem to be having a streak early in the competition, but much like Hungary's hopes, have fallen at the final hurdle early on in the group or in the championship.
I definitely stepped on the line in the last couple of rounds and missed a couple of penalties and taken some ridiculous shots, which means that I'm only 24 points ahead of Brian, who missed 7 games. So I need to get my ass in gear for the main round.
Oh, well, maybe we'll learn a thing or two over the next hour or so with the guests we've got coming on. We're going to cover both of the main round groups. We'll bring in a guest to talk about some of the key teams and the key storylines we've experienced over the last few days. And after we've heard from them, we're going to give the predictions for the main round matches. And all of that is in aid of the Match Predictor competition on the Home of Handball app, which if you haven't got already, well, there's a chance you still might be able to catch Brian. If you only missed a few matches, you can pick it up now in the main round. Or if you've already got the app and you're playing the Match Predictor, you'll be able to see on our social media and also later on in the stream the link to go to join the league. Because even if you've not joined the league yet, you can hop in at any time. I made myself feel better by joining the EHF Media one yesterday, and I'm up to second place in that one already, so happy days. Behind one EHF journalist, guess who that is? Guess who's top of the EHF Media one, Brian? It's a man famous for his bad predictions.
Bjorn Patzon, no, really.
It's Bjorn Patzon. Bjorn Patzon is top of the table so far, which is very, very impressive. So, on to the guests who we're going to have later on. First up, in about 10 to 12 minutes' time, covering Group 1, we're going to have Rasmus Boysen, who is a Twitter handball champion, I think it's fair to call him, over the last few years. He plays professional handball for Fredericia in the Danish league, currently in third place and having an amazing season. And he's also commentating on some of the games for Danish TV2, so he's really doing it all. And thankfully, he's managed to squeeze in a few minutes of his time to chat with us. He's a real friend of the podcast. And we're going to have a first-time guest for us then covering Group 2. It's the legendary Stefan Kretzschmar with over 200 international appearances for Germany. European silver medal and Olympic silver medal to his name. Champions League title as well with SC Magdeburg. He's also commentating on sportdeutschland.tv. So, two really interesting and knowledgeable guests here to set us straight later on. But before we go into them, maybe we can look back at some of the interesting stories from the last few days. And I think it would be amiss of us not to start with the drama in Budapest last night, and where the joint hosts, Hungary, were dumped out way too early and were left with 20,000 Hungarian fans in a state of shock. Alex, what did you make of that game?
I joined the 20,000 fans in a state of shock. I really thought that no matter what, Hungary would just get through it. But it was a game that they should have won. Even at the end, as I referred to in our introduction, they made 3 absolutely ridiculous mistakes with the game on the line. The first of which is a penalty missed by Dominic Mate, then a fast break where Boko stepped on the line. Then they got another chance. They got another chance with 25 seconds left and at least seal a draw, which may have seen them progress to the main round. And Mate Lekai, who has been an absolute force at this championship, a real leader for this team, he took a shot with 25 seconds left, jump shot over the Icelandic defence that was easily saved by Gustafsson. Maybe he thought that Hungary needed a win, and he probably was right, as Netherlands did pick up that victory in the end. But yeah, it was really heartbreaking stuff for everyone in the arena.
I think the key thing to that is, as you said, they had so many glorious chances towards the end. And those 3 in particular, on reflection, if they'd managed to score them, they would have had the 2-goal victory they needed to guarantee that they'd go through to the main round. In the end, weren't able to put any of them away. I was watching some of the highlights again this morning, and that final shot as well from Mate Lekai with 30 seconds left on the clock, it just Paul Bray said it all in the commentary on EHF TV, where he said, "What are you doing?" It was one of those rare moments where he just broke out of neutrality and just purely like, what are you actually doing? And the look on Lekai's face as well, they did a close-up of him shortly afterwards where he went as pale as a ghost. And I think it dawned on him that, yes, he actually made that decision. Really hard to fathom. I know you were in Bratislava at the time, Brian, covering the other games, but did you have a chance to witness any of it, or what did you make of the whole experience of Budapest being disappointed and both hosts in the end being knocked out in the first round?
Yeah, I mean, especially the game last night between Iceland and Hungary, I was really glad that I was not Icelandic or Hungarian, because there was so many points in the match where if I was either nationality, I think I would have been ripping my hair out if I had hair. But there was one moment when I really thought it was done and dusted. That's when Bjarki Eilison stepped up to take that penalty, and then he missed that penalty. And the Hungarian keepers were notorious for not saving penalties the whole tournament, and then all of a sudden they're pulling off penalty saves. So as a neutral, it was a really, really entertaining game, even though it was really messy. But sometimes those messy moments are what make the excitement, and it really was that. And I think it really could have went either way. They seemed to be both feeling the pressure, and yeah, it as Paul Bray said in the commentary, I think maybe that occasion and the build up for Hungary was maybe a little bit too much for that squad, and there was a lot of emphasis on this being the end of a cycle for these players, the new arenas, all this stuff maybe got to them a little bit too much. It was maybe too much pressure, and they weren't playing with ease like we've seen them in the past.
Oh, we've just had Alex Kulesh turn into Rasmus Boysen here. I don't know how that's happened. It's the magic of technology. So Rasmus, maybe we're going to have to get you to jump out of this call, because you're nice and early, and then you're going to have to jump in a few minutes, and maybe we can have Clemens, who's working in the background, sort out a new link for you. So a little teaser of what's to come with Rasmus Boysen. But we've still got the two of us now, Brian. And it's what you said there about the build-up, I think, is really interesting, because when we talked to Ben Sabadhidi before the championship as well in one of our preview podcasts, and he mentioned that they had been working together since the 15th of December. So in this championship, with so many teams completely lacking in preparation, or not even having the players that they prepared with here at the championship, and having to change with so many COVID cases, or injuries, this Hungarian team, for the vast majority of it, have been able to stay completely healthy and have trained together for a month and still haven't been able to deliver. And what do you read into that?
It's just hugely disappointing. Everything was just set up so perfectly, and as you said, the preparation was way longer than anyone else's preparation. Alex is back, but yeah, when you morphed into Rasmus Boysen there for a few minutes.
It was a beautiful experience, really. I felt how it was to be a good handball player for a little while. All my dreams came true for a couple of minutes.
Your head must be full of stats at the
moment. But sorry, just to get Alex up to speed now, we were talking about the fact that Hungary had managed to avoid any kind of absences and had been working together for a month leading up to this, and Brian was giving his take on that.
Yeah, I was just saying that. I mean, the everything was lined up for success for them, and yeah, I just think they maybe didn't have the personalities that was needed, apart from maybe Matt Delekai at some moments in the games where for people to stand up and kind of take responsibility. I think they kind of did wilt to a certain extent, and they really didn't look like the Hungary team from the World Championship of the past. And it's a really tough lesson for them. But I hope from here on out it will be a bit of a new start.
And maybe a last point on that, to say that I think one thing we haven't considered is that Benza Banhidi was not at full strength in this group stage. So they lost him in the first game. So they lost him kind of halfway through the first half, which I think made a big difference in that game against the Netherlands. They didn't have them for Portugal, but they did manage to squeeze that one out. And then he came back in for the last game and still performed really well, but waned a little bit. And in the past, especially in the last European Championship, Benza Banhidi was the player that they went to in key situations. So when it is close, when it's a 1-goal game, the ball got to Benza, and they didn't have that option for key stages during the group stage. So that's a real pity.
Yeah, I mean, it's a result in the end that, like, as neutrals, I don't think any of us wanted to see in the end, because at a championship like this, you always want to see the host, particularly a host nation like this, when they're able to pack out an arena like that to come in and stay in the tournament as long as possible, because the atmosphere they generated over the last few days was amazing. But as we alluded to at the start, they had their chances and they blew it, so we can't dwell on that for too much longer, and instead we're going to focus on some of the teams that are there. And with that, we're going to bring in Rasmus Boysen as Rasmus Boysen, not as Alex Kulesh this time. And I introduced them at the top of the show. I'm going to introduce him again. Rasmus Boysen, who is a hero for all handball people on Twitter, a professional player with Fredericia in Denmark, who are having a storm, or they're pulling off in Netherlands here. They're in third place in the Danish league at the moment. And also he's a commentator for this championship with TV2 in Denmark. So he's really doing it all. Rasmus, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
So Rasmus, I think probably a good place to start is you could tell us maybe your prediction before the Euro. What was it?
The same as your guys. No, I had Hungary to go for the silver medals. So it's the same as every predictions before a championship for me. So nothing new there.
So you had, was it Denmark, Hungary, and who was your third place again?
Sweden.
Sweden. So apart from second spot, would you stick to first and third place for the moment?
It changes every second, right? I thought maybe some days ago that Germany had a chance to go to the semifinals, and now I heard just 3 new positive cases, and it's just so difficult to predict anything. But of course, I'll stick with Denmark. I think also as a Dane, I need to do that, and everything is looking great so far. But I also think that France has surprised me and played very good. So probably I'll go for them as silver medalists. But as stated, I think that it could change in every second, to be honest.
And was your prediction the 1, 2, 3, which excluded France at the start, was that maybe a little bit of hope from a Danish perspective that you wouldn't have to face France, who have been Denmark's Achilles heel in the last few years? So was it more hope?
No, actually not, because I knew that we already would face them in the main round. So that was not a hope. Actually, it was just my predictions. And I thought, of course, I'm a little bit disappointed in Hungary. I thought that the home court could help them go through. But I also saw that France, of course, had some injury issues, lost a lot of important players. But, of course, they have a very wide team and a lot of good young players coming up. And you can never say that France don't have a chance in a championship. They always have. A little bit the same as Spain. So, I have to change now. And we'll see. The most important for me, of course, is that Denmark will win the medal, this gold medal in the end.
We will talk a lot more about Denmark. And interestingly enough, from the podcast perspective, we haven't actually talked about Denmark yet because there's not much to talk about. We'll have enough time for them later in the championship, I think. But now that we're coming into the main round, I think it is particularly interesting to talk about them. But as a whole, I want to get your perspective. What we've seen on the court, how has it differed to what you expected? I mean, some of the results have been a surprise. Maybe that itself is not much of a surprise. But what have you noticed about this championship in terms of the style of play and the way the teams have played that has stood out for you and been a particular interest for you?
Yeah, I think that it's maybe a little bit surprising that teams like Norway and Sweden, who made a breakthrough by playing fast and very seaworthy handball. They have not done that in this championship. And now we see other nations do the same, like the Netherlands, like Iceland. They play fast, they play great handball, and they are doing some great results. So I think that it's shown that if you have the ability to play fast transition handball, you have a great chance also as a little nation to get some great results. And we also saw that some of the teams who did manage that, just like Hungary, had some problems. So fast and attractive handball is also very good at championships, I guess.
And do you think maybe, so fast handball works, but do you think these teams might start to tire out as the tournament goes on? So it works really well in the preliminary round, especially teams like Iceland and Netherlands, who may not have as deep a squad as other countries, and a different style of handball might kind of be the one that wins the championship.
I guess so. When it comes to the Netherlands, I think the problem will be that they don't have enough players. They already looked a little bit tired, I guess, against Portugal. I actually think that Iceland has a very wide team with a lot of good players, especially offensively, I guess. So historically, we've seen a lot of times that Iceland, when going to the main round, they'll have some problems. Maybe this could be the year, but they will have a very tough first match in the main round against Denmark. I think they'll lose that, and then we'll see how it goes on. But of course, also with all those COVID cases, it will be something very important that you got a wide team, that you got a lot of players who could support your team. And we saw that Denmark in the final match, also the same with Spain, had the opportunity to get a lot of playing time for some of the not that good players who hadn't played that much. So I think that could be the case when we see match 7 and 6 and 7 and so on. So of course it will be more difficult to play this fast kind of handball throughout the tournament, I guess.
I'd just like to come back to what you said there about Norway and Sweden. And you as a professional handball player, that style of handball that got them their success over the last few tournaments, is that style of handball is there a limit to it within a certain group, that a certain group can only play like that fast for that long and then you kind of almost get burnt out? Do you see a little bit of burnout maybe with Sweden and Norway?
It's a difficult question, I guess. I think they have the players to play that kind of handball. Of course, Norway, they have lost Jørgen Johannesson and Magnus Rød, and they both have very good strength in these transitions type of play. So that's, of course, difficult for them now to play the same kind of handball. But yeah, of course, I think they could go on with that type of handball. I still think they have the types you need to play this kind of handball. Because, of course, I think that other nations, they'll have some problems with doing the same things, like some of the Balkans team, and they just don't have the types. But I think the Scandinavian teams have everything it takes to play this power handball, I would say.
Now let's, for the viewers at home, take a look at the Group 1 standings as they are. All of these teams take one game with them into the main round, and that leaves us on 3 teams with 2 points. That's Denmark, France, and Iceland, while the Netherlands, Croatia, and Montenegro begin on 0. 4 games each into the main round, so it leaves things very much wide open. And I think it's a good thing you mentioned the Denmark-Iceland game, Rasmus, because it feels like, particularly to me, that the Denmark-Iceland and the Iceland-France games are going to be really, really key here. Maybe an obvious thing to say, saying is they're the 3 teams on 2 points, but with 2 spots in the semi-finals to go for, and that being on the very first day. What do you think of Denmark's championship so far? They have had on paper at least, a fairly comfortable ride, but what have you made of them?
Yeah, it has actually been like some of the other championships in the past. To be honest, it has been very, very easy for Denmark in this group phase. Actually, maybe just too easy. And now they get like a very, very important match against Iceland, as mentioned. It will be fun and exciting to see when playing against a much better team than the ones they faced in the group phase. It's just like it's just too good for Denmark right now, right? No COVID cases, no injuries. Mathias Gissel just announced that he should be ready for the next matches. Of course, very, very important. And when he was out, Niklas Kirkeløkke came in, made 9 goals in a row now, and yeah. So it's very, very difficult for me to say something bad about this team. A thing that's been talked about in the Danish media could be that Rasmus Lauge, who played a very, very good test match against Norway, haven't looked like not that good anymore offensively. He had played okay, but it looked like he need more time to play with Mikkel Hansen and Mathias Gissel, like to adapt to that kind of handball, and that could be something who could be a challenge against Iceland. Also, of course, we played against them in the last Euros, and Lauge had a very bad game at that time and lost a very narrow win for Iceland. So it's of course possible for Denmark to lose against Iceland, because I think when Iceland play at the top of their level, they could win against every team in the main round, and they have had a good run right now. But to find something bad to say about Denmark, I think it's very difficult at the moment, to be honest.
A common opinion that I've seen a couple of times over the last week has been that even a Denmark 2 team or a B team for Denmark would probably make it to the semi-final of the European Championship. Do you share that opinion?
I think it's difficult to share that opinion, to be honest. It's maybe a little bit disrespectful. Of course, Denmark have a lot of good players and so on, but you also need to have respect for the other teams. So I don't share that opinion, to be honest.
You talked there about Kirkeløkke impressing you. Was there anyone else in the Danish squad that you maybe had an unexpectedly good performance that you were particularly impressed with?
I actually think that everyone made good impressions at the moment. Magnus Saustrup, he has been amazing once again, and just continued the level he has showed at SC Magdeburg this season. So who have been greater than I expected. I had some doubts about Mikkel Hansen, who had problems in Paris Saint-Germain before the championship, didn't play that much, but I think that he had stand out and played very, very good. So maybe him.
Yeah, it's so interesting with Mikkel Hansen, because it seems like he has been in a periphery role with PSG for the last couple of years. He hasn't performed at his best level, but at these championship, he just comes out and tears it up. It's incredible to see him raise his level so much. Why do you think that is? Why does he raise the level so much for Denmark compared to the domestic leagues?
I actually think it's quite natural because he plays very fast in the Danish team, and with the Paris Saint-Germain, it's very individually. It just suits him better in the Danish team because we play faster in Denmark than it's done in Paris Saint-Germain. Because I think Paris Saint-Germain, of course, plays great, but it's much more individually, and it had become better with the signing of Luc Steins, but it's still another type of playing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think while Mikkel Hansen himself is not the fastest in the world, but he might have the fastest brain in the world. So if you have 6 other lightning fast players running around you, Mikkel will make the right decision 9 out of 10 times.
Yeah, exactly. And he just needs someone who can create this type of playing, like fast paced handball, and then he can choose the right things. So totally agree.
Can we take a look at the other teams? We have Montenegro, who you already dispatched with from a Danish point of view, and it's hard to imagine them being real candidates in here. The Croatian team, I think, is a particularly interesting one. They had a tough start to the group. They've gone through about 40 players already to find the players they want in the squad at the moment. But as one of the commenters in the chat mentioned, they seem to be really enjoying this us against the world mentality in a difficult situation. I think it says a lot about this team that they can bring in players from out of nowhere and integrate them straight away. Do you think they can be a danger in this group?
I don't see them as a contender to go to the semi-final, but I think on the day they can probably beat some of the other teams. They have had a lot of problems with COVID-19, and several players are out, and it's just very, very difficult.
But I think obviously the Dutch has been a story for most people as kind of like the fairy tale story of the event. I mean, it's a silly question, but it's obviously a massive surprise for you too, no?
Yeah, of course. I think they did well at the last Euros, and they have some top players in Paris Saint-Germain, Luc Steins and Kai Smith, of course, in Magdeburg. But to see them go through in a group with Iceland, with Portugal, and with the home team, Hungary, I didn't see that one coming. But as we mentioned before, I think it will be difficult for them throughout the tournament because they play with 8-9 players. So I would think it would be very, very nice for them to get a victory or two in the main round, but I doubt it.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I think with the Netherlands, I do agree that it would be tough for them to progress. But do you think they might be able to kind of cause a shock early on? Do you think they have enough momentum to take a result from the teams looking to qualify for the semi-finals, like Denmark and France? Will their style kind of break down those teams, or do you think they're just too experienced to allow that?
Yeah, I think the problem for the Netherlands will be against Denmark and against France that they will not have the same opportunity to get the easy goals in the transition because both France and Denmark are very used to that and do it themselves. I think they had good opportunities to do it against the teams in the group phase, but it will be more difficult against France and Denmark. To surprise them with that. Of course, also Denmark and France, they now know that Netherlands have a good level, and the way they play, they have time to adapt to that tactically. If they should win some matches, it would be more like against Croatia and Montenegro, I guess.
So based on the process of elimination, then, it seems like we have 3 teams who you believe have a chance of going through to the semi-finals from this group, and that's Denmark, France, and Iceland. What do you think the key areas are going to be between the matches between these three sides to actually decide which to go through?
For Iceland, I think they are the underdogs. They need to be better defensively, have some more saves, so they get the chances to try to make those easy goals for the counter-attacking. But I don't see them having so great opportunities. But they need to be better defensively, and they need to maybe make some tactical adjustments to surprise France and Denmark.
Do you think they can?
Honestly, no. I think that Gudmundur Gudmundsson is a coach who knows the Danish team very well and could make some surprises as he did 2 years ago. I maybe think that they will go even more aggressively, more high in the defense, who maybe could surprise Denmark. But the problem for Iceland is now that 2 years ago Denmark had like Rasmus and Jakob Holm, who was very great 1-against-1. But now we also have Mathias Gitt. So the problem is if you go very high on some of the players, we just have more players who can go for the breakthroughs. So I don't think that will be an option. So and Denmark also, of course, also have the 7-against-6. So for me, I think that Iceland has a greater chance against France than Denmark at the moment.
It's a similar question to one I asked you earlier about Denmark, but let's maybe open it up to this group in general, because I think you're a very good person for keeping your eye on budding talent and some names that wouldn't be big names just yet. So just from this group, are there any players that really stood out to you that you really enjoyed watching and developed throughout the tournament?
I think Gisli Kristjansson, the Icelandic playmaker who has had so many problems with injuries. He has played a great tournament so far. A very modern player who has the speed and has caused problems for every defense he has faced at the moment. So I think that it is nice for to see that he is on the right path at the moment. And then I would have loved to set Karl Conan in France, but of course he's infected right now. But I've been very, very impressed by the level he has shown at the European Championship. So, and then I think that Branko Vujovic for Montenegro has played very well. Of course, we have seen his qualities in Kielce, mostly in the defense, but also offensively. But now, of course, with Montenegro, he has a greater role, and he has played very nice the last two matches. And then I also have to mention Tin Lusin for Croatia. Of course, he has gotten his breakthrough, also caused by all the absence for Croatia. But he has been very nice to watch. I also think that you guys mentioned him. He has the speed. He has a great vision offensively. So that's some of the players I've looked into, and of course we can also mention the two Dutch players, Kai Smits and Luc Steins, who of course have done great. And I also think that Danny Byens had played a great tournament so far. So there's actually a lot of players, but the one I just mentioned is probably most the one I think of.
And maybe a last question. So you've been commentating for TV2, and you seem to be getting maybe the third and the fourth game of the day. So on that day where we had three huge games, you were watching Norway-Russia, which turned out to be the big game of the day. But how have you managed that? Have you been rewatching, or are you doing 4 screens and commentating?
No, I don't do 4 screens and commentating. I of course watch only the match I commentate, and then I go home and then I watch some of the matches at the same time also. So I've almost managed to watch all the matches so far. But of course it's difficult also because I've been in the studio in TV2, and also that's the same time when some of the other matches is played. So it's difficult also because we have 4 or 5 matches at the same time sometimes. So Yeah, I haven't slept that much so far, so it's nice with a break today.
Fair enough. And just before we let you go, then Rasmus, and we brought you here for this Group 1. Can you give us a quick thinking, first place to last place, or last place to first place in Group 1?
Oh, okay. I would say last place, Montenegro. Second to last, Croatia. And then the Netherlands, then Iceland, then France, then Denmark.
I think that's a solid prediction. But we're all here to make predictions, and well, it's only when people get them wrong I realize now that the backlash on social media comes. When you get them right, like we did for the Women's Euro last year, nobody says a peep. It's only when you get to bring people down. I think that says more about the internet than anything else. But brilliant stuff, Rasmus. Thanks a lot for joining us for the chat. It's a pleasure, as always, to have you on. And yeah, we'll keep in touch over social media, of course. Do you get to continue commentating for the rest of the championship?
No, I'm done now.
Just like me, out in the preliminary round.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Thank you. Thanks, Rasmus. Take care, and talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.
Well, bye-bye.
So that was Rasmus Boysen. Lovely to talk to him as always, and an interesting prediction from top to bottom there. And we'll go into our own predictions shortly, but now we're going to Statman Kulesh for a look at what has stood out for the teams in Group 1.
Yeah, I've had a look through some of the stats from the preliminary round and picked out some tasty ones for us to chew over. And I think there's just one stat that completely stands out and everyone should be aware of, and that is the historic performance that we've seen from Kai Smits. Not only is he's averaging 10.7 goals in this tournament per game, but to realize just how historic it is, we have to say that he actually broke the record for the amount of goals in the first 3 games of a championship, with 32, actually smashing the previous record of 30. So really historic stuff from Kai Smits. The question is, do you think that he'll actually be able to keep going at this pace, at the pace that Netherlands play in the main round, and still keep scoring goals? What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Rasmus put it well there when he was saying that teams, particularly like Denmark and France, will be expecting what the Dutch will bring. I think in particular they'll know what Luke Steins will offer, but they definitely will know about Kai Smits at this stage. It would be ignorant not to. And it's not just from his performances at this championship, but his performances over the last few years as a whole. I think either way, he can always find his way through to goal. Whether he'll be scoring an average of just over 10 goals a game, I don't think so. But he definitely, over the next 4 games, will have a very good opportunity to make himself the top scorer overall. I think that's a nice target for him. I don't know if he actually thinks so much about his own personal goal tally. I think for any player at that level, it's not really important. He's just doing what he can, and his role in the team is to finish off chances like that. So I'm not sure if he'll be able to continue at that pace, but that's not the important thing for him and this Dutch team.
What's also really funny is that he has been an absolute bomber by nature. Goals only. He only has 3 assists in the championship. So there are 32 goals and 3 assists. So pretty individual stuff from Kai Smits in the rounds of 4 so far. Just some additional stats. I've got 2 for France. One is that Gerrard is having an unbelievable tournament again. His save percentage of 42% has been impeccable throughout the start of the tournament. So it will be really interesting to see if he can keep that up. And he has been keeping it up since Tokyo. So there's nothing to really say that his level would drop. And if it does, France do have Pardon to come in, who is an incredible goalkeeper in himself. And in the few minutes that he played in their last game, he showed some impressive saves as well. and it's really good to see Pardon back from his knee injury that kept him out for just over 6 months. But the other one is France leading the way in steals, which is something that maybe caught me by surprise. And France have 20 steals in the competition. That's quite a bit higher than any other team. So I think the second is 15. And that's something that I don't know if we talk about enough is France's defense. We talk about France's defense on the women's side and how aggressive it is, how dynamic it is. Do you think that is an underlooked part of France's repertoire, Brian?
I think it probably is. I think because it's maybe not the easiest thing for neutral handball fans who aren't that big into tactics to understand. So I think it probably is an underrated part of their game. But yeah, it's funny how Gerrard seems to pick the tournaments, and he's picked this one to turn up, and he's having an amazing. When he's on form, he just looks absolutely incredible. As we said in the past, sometimes consistency is a little bit of a problem, but he's definitely on fire this time out.
But yeah, that's a tough combination. France's defense and their goalkeeper just having a good day. So again, for some reason, a lot of people overlook this French team. Maybe it was the trouble with the build-up that they had, but it seems like they're starting to get rolling. Just two more quick ones. One is that Iceland have been the best wing shooting team in the tournament so far. They have scored 75% of their shots, so that's 25 goals from 33, which is pretty impressive and something to keep an eye on if they get into the close games. They might rely on the wingers a bit more than other teams in competition. And lastly, there's just one stat that just blows my mind. I don't know, we've talked about Matthias Giesel so much, and for some reason he keeps surprising us. He's only played 2 games, but in those 2 games, he has scored 12 goals, has not missed a shot. He has also added 14 assists. And on top of that, he's also drawn 6 7-meter penalties. So he's doing everything at an absolutely perfect level. It just keeps blowing my mind.
Our next guest will be particularly happy to talk about Giesel because he was instrumental in bringing him to his club for next season. So maybe we'll get a word in about him as well. One thing about the Icelandic wingers, Bjarki Mar Eilison is definitely putting himself in the shop window. He said publicly he wants to play in the Champions League. He's leaving Lemgo at the end of the season. And it'll be interesting to see where he ends up. I don't think that's public yet, his final destination. But whatever he's doing it well at this championship. Before we move on to Group 2, we'll hop on to our previews for Group 1 and quickly go through that. And the interesting thing for me is I decided to look at all of our predictions here and put them into a table, because I think there's a very big difference between people predicting matches individually and then also predicting the wider scope of the tournament and saying who's going to progress where. So while you can all see on the screen our different predictions, shall I give everyone an insight into who exactly we thought was going to qualify from this group based on those predictions?
Oh, absolutely. Go for it.
So, because I think it's at this point and the time we have, it's maybe a bit more interesting than going game by game. We all had Denmark at the end, at the top of the group, and only I had them win Brian and I had them on 10 points at the end of this, and Denmark on 8 for Alex, which means that they, according to Alex, will lose to France, as you can see on the prediction scoreboard there. And both of you, Alex and Brian, had France going through in either first place for Alex's case, Brian in second place. I put Iceland in there.
Ooh.
I didn't know I was doing it at the time, but then I thought Iceland versus France, there's a real opportunity for this team to pull off something in this main round. Rasmus put it very well before. And Rasmus put it very well before, saying that that Iceland don't really produce in the main round over the last few years, but this is a different team. They have players in every position that really, when you look at them as individuals, you're like, they are a solid player. And I'm really excited to see what they'll produce in the main round. What did you think of your actual predictions there when they're put onto a table, Brian?
A little bit surprising, but I think I'd probably agree with it. And I wouldn't be as convinced about Iceland as you are. I think they come up against the Hungarian side who are maybe who were under severe pressure with hosting the tournament and the new arenas like we talked about before. So I think maybe Iceland might struggle in the main round. So I'll probably stick to what I didn't mean to predict by guessing all the scores there.
Do you want to highlight one wildcard result that I did put in, and that is the Netherlands to beat France in the opening game of the main round? Because I think this wild. Netherlands team has one more big performance in them before they're completely exhausted and then just exit the competition. But they have one big performance. It's going to happen against France. But that doesn't do enough to get them through in the end.
Well, to talk about Group 2 now, we've gone through Group 1 in detail. We're going to bring on our next guest. He's SC Magdeburg and German legend, over 200 appearances for the German national team, an Olympic silver medal, a European silver medal. He's won the Champions League with SC Magdeburg, and he's also, at the moment, the sporting director of Fuchser Berlin. He's a commentator for this championship as well with Sport Deutschland. The list is endless. Let's bring him in. Stefan Kretzschmar. Can you hear us? How are you?
Hi guys, I hear very, very well. I'm fine at the moment, even there are a lot of struggle and a lot of problems that we have in the German team already at the moment. So today came up another big news. So obviously another 4 players are positive COVID. So I think we really struggle, but that is the advantage of Germany, that we have enough German potential national players that we can bring into the competition.
So despite the troubles that you've had, if you had to give this German team a score out of 10, what would you give them so far for the tournament?
You know what, Brian? When I saw the game yesterday against Poland, I also spoke to Alfred, to our coach, about that. I had to remember, 10 or 8 years when I had so much fun to watch a German team. So it was, for a long time, I didn't have so much fun watch the German national team like I saw them yesterday, and how I celebrated them yesterday. Because it's a young team. I think it's the first tournament where we don't expect nothing from the team. So it's not a young team, but it's a team with don't have so much experience when it comes to European tournaments or world tournaments. And they are just fun. You see that they are not so under pressure. So the mentality of the Germans in the last tournaments were, hopefully we are not losing, because the pressure of the media in our country is always big. And they went to tournaments with that pressure and with that mentality. And now it's the first time they cannot lose, so they can just win. So nobody expects something from them. And that's the way how they are playing. I think the mentality fit more to our country and to our team, even though I know that we have 750,000 handball players in Germany and we always have high expectations. But they play really good. I also like the way how they play, how they defend, and how they stick together as a team. So you also see that it's team sport now, and that it doesn't matter which player you talk. Everybody said that there is a great team spirit and a great atmosphere in the team, and they all have fun together. There is no big superstar, so everybody knows his role. Everybody feels important, and that is quite secret of the team now. I give them the 7.3. So my number is 73. So 7.3 would be
So the way that you describe this team, does it draw any parallels with the bad boys of a couple of years ago? where it was a team that surprised. So do you see that parallel?
Alex, that's a good question, and everybody discussed that parallel in Germany. So everybody said, okay, that's the same like 2016 when we won the European Championship. Could be, but when you do that, then you put pressure on the team again, because then you raise the expectations, and then you say, okay, you have to be like the European champions 2016. It could be, but honestly, we have to say the pre-round was not that difficult. They were tough. Belarus and also the Polish team, they are good, but the teams on the next level, they come now. And of course, that are bigger challenges, what we have now with Spain, Norway, Sweden, and Russia. So we have enough self-confidence now, and I think we can win against that teams. That is for sure. But we should not raise the expectations now. We just should enjoy the team and see the development of the team, because, like I said, many players didn't play not even one championship, and what you need now in the main round when it comes to close games, it is experience, and obviously that we don't have.
It's a very good point, and one of the main comparisons for non-Germans, so people outside of the German handball community, is that there are players coming into the squad now that people aren't so familiar with, and as you said, are lacking that experience. Can you give us a bit of an insight into some of the younger, newer players that have really impressed you in these opening days from the outside of the squad? And which of those do you think have the quality to make up for that lack of experience when they face the big boys in the main round?
I told before the tournament that we will not have that one player or that two players who step up in the tournament. When I have to speak about the tournament before, I had to say that in every game there are different players who have a coming out. So there are always different players who make that game to their game. So it will not be always the same player, because we have not that dominant player or that superstar player. So every player will pick a game and will make that game to his game. So yesterday it was obviously Julian Köster. He is a 21-year-old guy from the second league from Gummersbach in Germany. So probably nobody knows him in world handball, but he is a really good guy, talented guy. He is an amazing defender on a 3-2-1 defense. With his 2 meters, he is like a small Duvniak, and he can defend there very well. So he is a good guy. We have a 32-year talent, Christoph Steinert. he is not
it does feel like that, yeah.
He is not a talent anymore, but he is a newcomer, so he never played a tournament. But he is a good guy because of character and mentality. He is not such a talented, extraordinary Magnusson or Gitzel, but he is a mentality monster, and he brings that chemistry from his mentality to the team. So we have good wings. Traditionally, we have Philipp Weber, and Philipp Weber is also not the guy who play his 6th, 7th, or 8th tournament. He is still new, but he is kind of a leader that we need, and we have 2 amazing pivots with Winczek and Golla. And I think the defense was also very good in the last team. So I cannot tell you one name. I need to tell you a few names, and I don't know about who we will speak in 2 or 3 days, because there come always new guys to the team. So I don't know if they invite me at the end.
Yeah, you never know. You never know.
No, you see, Rune Darmke probably is out. No, so then you have Schiller out. Then you have Lukas Mertens out. You have Darmke out. So they don't have a left wing. I mean, yesterday the second goalkeeper would be Paul Drucks. I mean, that would be the guy if Yogi Bitter would be injured. That's crazy times.
You're someone who has a very obviously close connection with Alfred Gislason, and I'd say you presume you call him a friend. Apart from all the uncontrollable problems they've had off the court, what has he been saying about the team and how they're playing to you, or has he been talking to you about that?
he's a hard worker, and he's just amazed by hard work. So if the team works hard, he is okay. I mean, the team is pissed sometimes because they have a 3-hour video meeting, something like that, and that's not just only once. So he is a perfectionist. He is a really tough guy. I know that because I worked for him, I don't know, 10 years. It was a really hard, long time, especially in the preparation. He expects a lot. He don't accept injuries. So I had a lot of injuries in my career, but he said, with that injury, you can play. So it was always this Icelandic mentality. But obviously the situation with COVID is different. But he's a realistic guy. What is new for me when I see Alfred, he never could work with young players. So when he was a coach of Kiel or of Magdeburg, he always had his first 7, and the first 7 played always. So he just trusted his 7 best players, and he played with them all the games. And now I see a transformation in him, that he also changed the team, and he bring young players to the table, and he trusts them. So he gets older, and obviously he gets a little bit wiser, and he trusts now young players. And that is a difference between him now and him 5-6 years ago.
Moving a little bit into the wider group and sticking with the coaching topic. So Russia have been a bit of a surprise in this championship, and their coach, Velimir Petkovic, is someone you're familiar with quite a lot from his time in Füchse Berlin. Have you seen his style kind of come into Russia and actually drive this Russian team?
Yeah, he is a little bit contrary to the development of handball general. So he is the only guy who plays old school. I mean, when you see the transformation of handball worldwide, and you see Iceland and you see the Netherlands, how they play, how they change the game, and then you see Russia. I mean, that's old school. That is a 6-0 defense with 2-meter tall guys in the middle, in the center, also on the halfback positions, and that is how the Russian had success in the 80s with a good goalkeeper behind. But the thing is, you can have many ways to have success, and that is good news for the Russian team. That's not just that everybody had to copy now Iceland or Netherlands to be successful. No, you can also be successful with a different opinion. And Petkovic is a guy who was looking for what he has in the Russian Handball Federation: big guys, tall guys, good defense. Not the best ball handlers, but tough, and that is the secret what he had. And he is a mastermind when it comes to motivation. So he is not a genius in handball's strategical way, but he is a genius in motivate the players. So when you see him in the halftime or in the preparation of the game, I mean, everybody is fixed after his speech to the team. Everybody is motivated on the maximum. So he really can get through you with his speech, and that is what he's doing. He is a psychological mastermind. He's an old school guy, and I really like the Russians, how they defend with all the heart. I didn't see a Russian team for a long time who put all the heart on the field what they have. So I really like them, how they play, how they fight. And they have Chitnikov as a strategical mastermind. Unfortunately, Kozorotov is out now with the COVID-19 infection. And that is a problem for the Russians in the main round, that they lost him and Shishkarev. But I really like him. And yeah, Petkovic is a guy, if you have a good team, and if they have mentality problems, or if they are not motivated every day, or if they lose control, or if you think they can work harder, then you put him in a circle, because then he's the right guy. Then he's coming and he's changing everything.
The general.
Basically, he's a good guy for kicking them up the arse and getting them going again, is what you're saying, huh?
Therefore, he's the right guy. Right.
Talk to me a little bit about Norway and Sweden. Looking at the group here, I don't think too many expected both of them to be coming in with 0 points based on the groups they had. But here they are. Rasmus told us earlier on that what surprised him most is that the success that these teams have had been based on a certain way of playing handball and a certain pace they've played. They've both kind of abandoned that or haven't been able to reproduce that yet so far in this championship. Is that how you've seen them so far yourself?
They are still among the favorites, so they can still win the championship. No question. But both are in trouble, and there are different reasons why they are in trouble. I think the Swedish team is in trouble because they lost Max Dari. He is more important than everybody think for this team as a defense general on the floor. He is quite important for that team having success. In offense, you don't have to, you don't have to worry about, because Gottfriedson and Klar will take over whenever they need. But defense is the problem of the Swedish team. And then the loss of Dari weighs heavy. Norway is a little different. Norway look exhausted. So the players look exhausted. They look a little weak, especially Zagosen is not on that level that we expected from the tournaments before. I saw that also in the Bundesliga, that his level of playing was going down and down and down in the last months, in the last 1.5 years, because he also played so much. And there's so much pressure on his shoulders. I'm not sure if he can handle that in that age. So they lost Röth and Tjögert. And they're two really important players for them when it comes to their whole playing system, how they change, how they get rest for the other players. And without them, they are not on the same level like they were in the tournaments before. So I think the losses of that important players also affect strong teams and strong nations like Norway and Sweden. And you see now that they fight handball. They don't play handball anymore, or it looks not so easy anymore. They have to fight hard for the results. And that is a difference them in that tournament than to the previous tournaments. So they still have amazing players. If you look at the squad of Sweden, I mean, that's one of the best squads in the world. Even also, if you think about the future of that nation, what players will come up in the next years. But the defense is the key. They have to control the defense, and they have to establish the defense again to win a medal on the tournament. And Norway, I expected that they are not so good this tournament. Because they look a little exhausted.
It's interesting there what you said about Sagosen. I'd just like to ask you, slightly off topic, but we'll come back to the Euro in a second. Do you think, because you've been through the ringer yourself as a top professional handball player in the Bundesliga for so many years, do you think a move away from the Bundesliga for Sagosen is the right move for him to maybe gain back a bit of that power again?
It's a good question. At first, if you want to become World Handball Player of the Year, that is not the right move. So he will not get the trophy of World Handball Player of the Year as an individual award when he goes back to Norway. That is not possible for him. So personal success should not be his first target, in my opinion. But it is his hometown, and he had the opportunity to build something up in his hometown. And as I know, they put a lot of pressure on him because they said, if you don't come, we don't pay the money. So they made it personal. So they put it personal on him. So the whole project will not work if Zagosen will not come. So he was the first stone of that project. And if you put that pressure on a 25-year-old guy who had to make a decision if a club with Champions League ambition exists or not, I mean, that's not fair. That's really not fair. So then it was not really a decision for him. So he had to make that. in order that Norway want to get a competitor. But it is nice for him to come home, and also for the other players, because look how many injuries Röth had, or how hard the Bundesliga is. And they decide to go home to have probably 2 strong games against Elverum a year, and hopefully, and that's not sure when, playing Champions League. And of course, for your body and for everything, it's better to play in Karlstad because you can recover from everything. It is not that tough like you play in the Bundesliga. So that is a clear yes for Sargosen. But you know what? I was a professional handball player. I always prefer to play Bundesliga because that is the biggest competition with the biggest opponents every weekend. And you play sold out arenas every weekend. Unfortunately, the last 2 years not. But I like the competition always. And I can also understand guys who struggle with many injuries or who are 32, 33 years old, who want to extend their career a little and make another decision and go to another country. So you have to speak always with the players who made the decisions. It's always different, and you have to respect the decision. I mean, finally, Brian, when you can build up a Champions League team with a lot of ambitions in your home country, you have to try that. I mean, that is a real opportunity.
And maybe talking about a new star that has come in and really lit the handball world on fire, and that is Matthias Giesel. And again, this tournament, I don't know if you were already watching this, just how perfect of a tournament he's having already. It looks like it will keep going. But my question is, from a Füchse Berlin point of view, how the hell did you manage to convince him to come over to Berlin?
I was the first guy, I think so, who spoke with him or who wanted him. When, in the whole handball world, I don't know how you think about that, but everybody is still doubtful about him. So there's still a rest of being doubtful. Can he hold that level? Can he manage the Bundesliga? Is he ready for that? Or is he still an upcoming star or something like that? So I heard so many questions about him, and I think all the clubs had also that doubts and they had that questions and they were not sure if he can become a real leader or a real tough player. And I spoke with him the first time after Egypt. It was his first tournament for the Danish national team. And I was sure that I want him. And I told him that I'm sure that I want him. And we had a long conversation. We invited him also to Berlin, and we had a good evening. He was a really amazing guy. And we have already 3-4 Danish players in the team, what helps a lot, I have to say. Also, when it came to the Olympics, because before the Olympics, we had no signed contract. So we agreed, but we had no signed contract. And then the Olympics starts. And then I asked the manager of him, what is about the contract, when he will sign? And the manager told me, be cool. He don't want to sign the contract in a shitty hotel in Japan, so he will come back, and then we make an official press conference, and we will sign the contract then. And what the fuck? How can I trust them? I mean, that is not the easy situation, and I was nervous. I tell you, Alex, I was not sleeping the next 14 days. So I was just nervous because I didn't have a signed contract. The manager told me, you can trust us. We made a decision. So then he played the first game Olympics, best player. He played the second game, best player. He played the third game, best player. And then he got MVP, finally. And that was the worst what can happen. So then And then every idiot on the planet knew that he will become a good player after he got the MVP award at the Olympics. And but he came then to Berlin 1 week later, and he told me, you know what? It is the same like with GOG and Aalborg in Denmark. He prefers to win with GOG against Aalborg than to play for Aalborg. So he is how can I say that? He is the underrated guy.
Underdog.
Yes, the underdog guy. And he said also he prefers to win with Füchse Berlin, something big, than to join a big club now. So when I can tell you, when he signed the contract in our office, I saw the phone of the manager on the floor because the phone was charging. And I watched at the phone and I saw the names of the managers who tried to call them in that situation. And I just put my body in front of the phone like this. Nobody can see that anymore. So yeah, we are really happy to have him. We're really happy.
Brilliant story. And we gave him you mentioned the EHF World Handball Player of the Year, which doesn't seem to exist anymore. So we made our own this year and we gave it to Gisel for 2021. So we're definitely not doubting him. And yeah, brilliant story and well done getting him. I think that's safe to say. We'll do one more round of questions. I know you've already been very generous with your time and we don't want to hold you for too long. And I just want to ask you, because it's 20 years since you played in the final of the EHF Euro in Sweden and got the silver medal there. And I want to ask you, first of all, what your abiding memories of that incredible final and the extra time were. And secondly, as a wing player yourself, looking at the wings at this championship, do you notice anything particularly new when you're looking at players like Dylan Nahi, maybe, for example, or we've had some fantastic wing performances at this championship, and what kind of players stand out for you?
Well, first of all, from that championship in Sweden, I still wonder why the Swedish team keep the gold medals. I mean, they should give them to us. What is the moralistic standpoint? I mean, that is 20 years ago. Now they can really make some interviews and be kind enough to give us the gold medal, because we deserve that and we earned that in the game. Obviously, the referees saw it different, but it's bad karma for them. So they should be honest and should say now, okay, we give the gold medals to the Germans now. No, it is how it is. When it comes to the wings, it is like everything in handball. It becomes more athletic when you see, especially Dylan Nahi. I mean, he's a monster on the wing position. He is a guy who could defend also on the second position. What you didn't see so much, you see Magnus Landin can do that, but not so many more. He is an amazing guy. He's really, in an athletic way, a role model. What I don't like is that he tried to cheat a lot when he runs the
fast break, counter attack.
I really hate that, how he runs the fast break, and when there is a defense player who is aside him and he tried to take the contact to get us 2 minutes or 7 meters, something like that. So it's not necessary for a good player like him to play handball like that. So that is what I really hate about him. But handball-wise, he is an amazing handball player, amazing wing. Yeah, you don't see so many new trick shots. You see a lot of guys who can do trick shots. That's the majority of the players. But you also see wings who cannot do even one trick shot anymore. So they're just straight wings who put the ball straight in the goal. So that's also possible at our time to have wings like that. No, I don't see a revolutionary development from the wing position. So it is, the wings have to do what they always do. And what I don't like is nobody can do a 101 anymore. Nobody do that. No wing player do search for a 101. They just wait for their chances, and then they do that, and with a high quality, of course. But 101 from wing position, you don't see anymore. It's a little sad.
Yeah, from how you're talking now about everything, and when you're talking about Fuchs Berlin before and now working as a commentator, it seems to me that you're really, really enjoying your time after handball. And are there aspects of things you learned as a professional handball player that you've brought to now your professional career?
Good question. At first, I stopped playing handball because I lost motivation from one day to another. So that was the reason. I didn't have the motivation anymore at one point. I don't know why. I lost the desire. So I stopped with 34 years old in Magdeburg. And but you know what? I love this sport so much that I always wanted to work also in that sport, and I'm still a fan of our sport. So I watch so many games. I like to watch other nations, European Championship now, also Bundesliga. I'm a big fan. So I think that is the base of everything, that you are still a big fan of the sport and also of the players. What helps me now that I was a team player, so that allows me also to move into a team like a TV channel or something else. So bring everybody together. I think my biggest strength as a player was bringing everybody together outside the handball field, because I thought that was always important. So what we bring on the field is nice and it's good and it defines us as handball players, but to give everything what we have on the field, then it's necessary to share some moments out of the field. So, and I was the professional organizer for events for the team, something like that. That helps me also a lot. And I still have that inside, even if I'm a little older now, but I try to organize that now also for my team, Fuchs Berlin, that we have a better community and we have a better team spirit, even if the times changed and now we have to include the woman in my in my age. So just the team went out, but today it's different and the players are different, the situation is different. So if you create an event for the team, you have to create the players, their women, and their children also. So that is quite different now.
Bit more family friendly.
It sounds like it's all getting more boring, you know. The wingers are getting more boring. The parties are getting a little bit more boring. But yeah, but thanks a lot for all of the stories, all of the knowledge you've shared. And before we let you go, we'll have to ask you for your predictions. So before the tournament, I think you said that Denmark would win it and that Iceland would be a surprise. So Iceland, I think, have already come true. Denmark look good.
Yes, the biggest surprise are the Netherlands. So they really impressed me, and everybody who is a handball fan should enjoy the Netherlands games. I mean, that is also when it comes to the importance of role models, then you see the team of the Netherlands now, and probably you are a young, small player who is not that tall and who is not that big. Then you can dream big if you see the team of the Netherlands. I mean, the handball is different now. The handball changed also from the backyard position. You can see that you can be successful also when you're not that tall. And that is the importance of that Netherlands team, to show to the young guys, to the youth, to the young players that they can get big even if they are not that tall. So also they are like Magnusson or Christiansson. They have that role model character now for a generation, for a few generations. I like that. I really like that. So Iceland and the Netherlands are surprises, good surprises. Hungary is out. That is a bad surprise, but it was the same group. So if you have good surprises, then you have also have to have a disappointment. And Denmark is, what do we talk about Denmark? I mean, Denmark is the only nation beside Germany, even if they have 10 COVID-19 cases tomorrow, they can bring up a completely new squad on the same level, I think so. That is, either you want to be Nikolaj Jakobsen or Alfred Gislason. So I think if that is a national team with so many talent, with so many good players, so amazing players, I think it is the biggest team in world handball now with so many superstars. And I said that Niklas Landin will be the MVP. So that is still my prediction that he will be the most valuable player of that tournament because he is honestly the strongest goalkeeper in the world. I don't know. Some of you said Enzo Banhidi will be the MVP. Did I?
Correct.
Some of our guests did. I don't think any of us did, but
I did.
Yeah. Oh, did you, Brian?
I did.
I didn't want to blame you for that because honestly, he was also injured. I mean, that is not
true.
And honestly, everybody of us expected the Hungarians probably on the medal situation. So it is the biggest disappointment of that tournament so far. But of course, I'm still with Denmark. So I know their mentality, and that mentality also changed in the last 20 years. When I remember Denmark in the 90s, then Denmark was always a nation who lost control, and he was not that strong-minded when it comes to the tough time of the game, when it comes to the table. So then you saw that Denmark really sucked when it comes to the last minutes of the game. But they are completely different now. I mean, they are really the best team in the world, and they deserve that. I think nobody can beat Denmark. I know in world handball there are games where they can lose also, so they are not unbeatable, but they will get the trophy at the end.
You had Germany in 5th place originally. Do you think they can sneak their way into the semi-finals, or you think it's, with everything that's happened, it's too much of an ask for them?
You know, Chris, everything is possible, but everything. So this team can also lose all the 4 games. Also, that is possible. So, and we should not be disappointed. You know, that is Germany. Now we are on the peak. We are happy, and now we become the European champion, and the expectation rise and rise and rise. Yeah. And we put more pressure on the team now. But you lose tomorrow against Spain, and everything goes down and down and down. And we are the worst team of the tournament. And so we should enjoy the team at the moment. And I call me an expert, but I don't know what to expect in the main round from our own team. I don't know what comes out. Maybe they win against that grandpa team from Spain, but probably they are so experienced that they're still the most clever team in Europe. So everything is possible. Yeah.
Well, that's the crazy thing about this championship, and we're all going to enjoy it over the next few days, that's for sure. Thanks a lot, Stefan Kretzschmar, for joining us. A pleasure to talk to you, and enjoy the rest of the championship.
You too, guys. Have fun.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Brilliant stuff from Stefan. And I think, you know, he said it all in one way or another about this group, and we're going to try and go into our own previews for this group. And as you'll know, people watching, that as Stefan said, it's so hard to call this group, particularly given all of the changing circumstances, not just day by day, but hour by hour, it seems, among these teams. But we'll go into Kulesh's stats now for Group 2.
Yeah, I thought I'd throw out some stats here for this Group 2. And the first of which, it was actually a surprise for me, because I've been looking at Sweden, and they haven't been at the level that they were previously. And my initial assumption was that maybe, you know, all this playing with 6 players for Flensburg for 3 years straight is all kind of on top of him, and he's not as good. But he's the top assists maker in this championship. He also has 14 goals from 17 shots. He has been good. So it's definitely not Jim Gottfriedson who is the problem, which leads me to kind of in a bit of a wonder of what exactly is the problem. I think Rasmus and Stefan shared their views about their slow play a little bit, but do you see a way of them kind of speeding up this play, Chris?
I think another one there is what Stefan mentioned with Max Darge, and it's no surprise that he did, because he's also signing him for Fuchs Berlin next season. So, of course, he's a key player, and he's not the only one to mention that. And yeah, I mean, when it comes to transitioning into the attack, I guess there's no reason why they can't pick it up. They, like everyone else, did have a fragmented preparation period, and maybe it's something to show that for teams like this that are running on a certain type of attacking play, that they do need more time than others to get into it. Another thing is that the Swedish team from the last year at the World Championship and at the Olympics were a bit of a surprise to everyone, and particularly if we think back to this time last year during the World Championship, the way they played caught everyone off guard, and maybe it's also a case that teams are extra prepared for them and are focusing on their own transition defense in order to stop Sweden doing what they do best.
Yeah, I still have quite a lot of faith in them in this group, I think, and we'll go into our predictions on that, but I do have them progressing to the semi-final. Second stat there is Germany and their absolutely incredible 9-meter shooting. So they've scored 70% of their 9-meter shots, which is 14 goals from 20. So it's not the highest level of shooting. As you can see, Norway have taken 47 9-meter shots. So Germany haven't been shooting from the backcourt that much, but when they have, it's been incredibly successful. The average, I think, for the competition is somewhere between around the 40% mark, so it's shooting twice as good as any other team. And I'm not sure if that will continue, and that may be why, for me, Germany might not get through to that semi-final spot. But on Spain, Brian, so you've seen a lot of Spain in the first group phase, and the stat I have there is that Spain have only conceded 5 7-meters across the 3 games, which is the lowest in the competition so far. It just speaks volumes to their defense and the way, the famous defense and how that works in such a good way. They've only conceded 8 minutes of suspensions. Again, a really low level. So how have Spain been able to do that while losing Viran Maros, Brian?
Well, I think, Spain's bread and butter is a really, really strong defense, fast break, and their wingers. And it's not only Spain's A team. Spain also have this B team who have these backup players who they can bring in, who they've brought in now. So the transition of these new players coming to the team is very, very smooth. And I think that's probably been the key aspect, because they have this system that they use throughout the Spanish national teams, and it's like a blueprint they put on everything, and they trust that system. And even if they do miss 1 or 2 players, like Viran Maros being a huge one, everyone knows the system, so the period where you have to learn the whole new system is very, very short, or the adjustments they might have to make. So that's the thing that Spain do really well, and how they've played so far has proven that, I think. They're on the largest winning streak in the history of the competition with 15 games now. That dates back to the EHF EURO in 2018. So they know what they're doing when they're playing this tournament. And I've been... We did have some questions before in our preview about them, but I've been impressed by them. I think, they were pushed a little bit by Bosnia-Herzegovina, but it was. I think they had a lot of new players on the court, and they were kind of had their foot off the gas to a certain extent. But I'd be fairly confident that they'll do a number on Germany in that first game.
And just an additional point on Spain is that their defense has been good, but their world-class goalkeepers have not been very world-class. Perez de Vargas on 22% save and Corrales on 19. So what I take from that is actually a positive. They've been able to win easily and progress without their amazing goalkeepers, and they have another gear to go. So Spain, overlooked as always, dangerous as always, probably going to win the European Championship as always.
All right, hold your hat.
No, that's a bit looking too far forward. Some quick stats, and maybe then we'll just go on to the predictions. But I think we've talked about this, how Norway are relying on their 9-meter shot, and they've had 47 9-meter shots and scored 21 of them. Not a very good return overall. So it'll be interesting to see if they can figure that out. And on top of that, they've only had 10 breakthrough goals in the championship, which is a complete 180 to where we see handball going right now, and that being the focus. The only team with more long distance shots is Russia, and Stefan went through why that might be the case. Of that old school style, they've taken 52 9-meter shots, so they're big bombers bombing away. And lastly, Poland have 5 players with more than 2 hours played of handball so far. The only teams above that are Iceland with 6 players with 2 hours of handball played, and the Netherlands with 7 players above 2 hours played. So these three teams have been very impressive so far, but they have really relied on their core crew. Do you think that they can keep going for at least a little while? Chris or Brian, chip in to see which one of these teams, maybe between Poland, Netherlands and Iceland, has the most potential.
Well, for me, it's Iceland, because I put them going through to the semi-final based on the predictions. I still don't know. I still don't know how I did that, but that's the joy of putting your predictions and actually seeing what they result in. And based on the predictions I've made there, I actually see the Poles not getting a single point in the main round. So I think that says what I think of them going into this. And actually, both of you guys have them down for 1 victory in the main round. So maybe they will struggle, but I think that is probably more to do with the opposition they're going to face and the clash of styles. I just, when looking at the clash of styles here and looking at the way they played against Germany last night, that had me worried for their future in this competition.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a lot of hype after those first 2 games, but I think it's been knocked off a bit against Germany.
So out of all the scores there now, do we have any hot takes? I'm looking at you, Alex. Anything that you were putting your neck out there for?
I think actually in this group, I didn't quite have as many hot takes.
I've got one for you. Well, I've got one which actually shows a bit of contrast in the way that we're looking at the teams here, and that's Norway. I think it's quite interesting looking at how differently we see their main round group going. Because feeding into the final table here, Alex sees Norway get 1 single point in the main round. Brian sees them get 2 points from the opening game. And I see them win the first 2 games, then losing the next 2. So that's quite a difference in the way that we're looking at Norway's future here. Besides that, I think actually the hottest take here is you, Brian, going for Germany to win 3 of the matches and qualify for the semi-finals.
Yeah, as you said, I didn't really realise that, but when you put it down, that might be a bit of a stretch. I'll be honest. I'm not so confident in it anymore. But look, I won't. I'll have to trust my instinct because it's been rock solid so far. As I said, 732nd place in the leaderboard, in the overall leaderboard, and then I think I'm 31st in the Handball Hour League. Which, of course, you can still join if you want to get in now. You might still beat me, so not be too hard. But yeah, I mean, look, as Kretzschmar said, they might not have the biggest superstars. Germany might not have the biggest superstars, but they do definitely have the biggest pool of players to take from, and that in a strange way could be a benefit for them over the length of the tournament. And yes, I wouldn't count Germany completely out yet, but I think they're going to be a lot of. They're defensive tough. There's some really, really big guys in there, so I think you're always going to get a tough match when you play against Germany. So I wouldn't count them out just yet. One thing which everyone is really bad at, by the way, is, and we've seen it a million times before, is a team plays poorly in the preliminary round and everyone counts them off. And there's always one team who played poorly in the preliminary round and turn around in the main round and go on a bit of a run. And I think generally handball fans are pretty bad. We like to give up on people very quickly, Alex. And
well, I gotta come to Alex's defense here because he's done the quite complete opposites with Sweden, and Sweden, who were seconds away from elimination in that drawn game against Czech Republic. Alex has them down as winning every main round game and qualifying for the semi-final, as do I. But why, Alex?
Because I predicted them to win the championship, so I'm sticking to that prediction. It is pure bias from my original.
No other reason.
No.
Okay.
I think again, I think Sweden's performance hasn't been as bad as they seem so far. I think they will figure out that center of defense because I do like Oscar Bergendahl. He has been a fighter. He's not the same level as Max Starge, but I think he'll grow into it. I think that will happen. And hopefully they pick up their pace as the main round goes on. And to be honest, this group is wide open. I really, you could flip any of these results and they would look good or look like they're right. And I'm just really excited for it.
We also have Spain winning all the games and qualifying top of the group. All three of us, which means that's basically a death sentence for this Spanish team in the main round. I mean, if you want to know how it's not going to go, is something that everyone agrees on, and that seems to be that Spain are coming out of the depths of prediction hell into the semi-final. We'll see if that is the case or not. Another wild prediction we have in the chat is from Starfish Robot, and saying that Germany beat Spain after being forced to use a non-goalkeeper in goal. Stefan Kretzschmar mentioned Paul Drux there. Paul Drux apparently said he was disappointed that he didn't even get a chance to face a penalty the other night against Poland. And Daniel Raidman, I think, has been called in as a second-choice goalkeeper. So that may or may not happen. You never know with this championship, that's for sure. It's when it comes to some teams, they're definitely having a lot less luck than others. Any other big predictions we should go into before we wrap this show up?
I think we're good to go. Who's your MVP of the tournament now? Since Brian, you've lost Ben Sabanahidi. I think I'll stick with Palika. If Sweden do get through as I expect them to do, they'll need Palika at the top level. But yeah, Brian, who do you replace your MVP with?
I think the MVP of the preliminary round, just for the story as well, has to be Kai Smits. I mean, I think there's nobody else. I think just what he's doing in terms of, I mean, also being top scorer, it's always not the reason to pick him as MVP, but just that how he's carrying his team and he really stepped up. I think he would be definitely the MVP of the preliminary round if you had to pick one.
But what about going forward? Will Kai Smits just keep tearing it up and take that MVP crown home?
I'm not sure. That's tricky because obviously I don't think they're going to progress to the semi-final, and it's not going to be someone outside of the semi-final teams. So that's tricky. What do you think, Chris?
I'm wondering how high do the Netherlands have to finish for Kai Smits to be given the MVP? Top 8?
Well, but you're not going to get the MVP though. You're not going to get the MVP outside of the semi-final teams, are you?
I mean, if he scores another 32 goals in 3 games and then does another 10, I mean, he's going to get the top scorer trophy. He'll be in the All-Star team for that. I went with Saugstrup pre-tournament. I think that's still pretty solid for now. I think anyone who predicted a Danish person, unless it's Yannick Grain, they have a chance to come out on top still. But yeah, Brian, pick someone who you haven't already.
I'll go for Matthias Gitzel. Why not? We'll stick it with the top, one of the biggest topics of the whole episode.
Mr. 100%.
Mr. 100%. Why not? I mean, it's probably going to be right. I think that's enough to go on for today. Brilliant show, and thank you so much to Rasmus Boysen and Stefan Kretzschmar for joining us, and thank you to everyone who watched at home. Plenty more to come in the Euro. The main round kicks off tomorrow with 6 matches, and we'll be continuing our podcast every 2 days for the rest of the championship. So from Brian, Alex, and myself, it's goodbye.